In the grand, shadowy halls of Fairmont Crest, where secrets often fester like unspoken curses and alliances shift like sand under the moonlight, the news of Tomas's tragic death hits like a violent storm that shatters the fragile veneer of civility that the residents of this seemingly pristine estate have tried so hard to maintain, and the echoes of his passing reverberate through every corridor and room, reaching each character in ways both visible and insidious. Tomas, once a quietly calculating presence who had balanced his own ambitions with a careful watch over those he considered family, now leaves behind a void that no one can quite comprehend, a void that feels almost physical, pressing against the hearts of those who knew him with the sharp edge of loss. And yet, as the initial wave of grief begins to crest, it becomes painfully apparent that his death is not only a personal tragedy but a catalyst for the unraveling of many hidden truths within Fairmont Crest, as whispers of foul play and betrayal begin to circulate in hushed tones among the staff, guests, and long-standing residents, all of whom have their own reasons for hiding or revealing the secrets they clutch so tightly. And amidst this swirling vortex of suspicion and sorrow, Randy, ever the loyal yet conflicted confidant, finds himself facing an internal crucible of conscience. For he knows more than anyone else about the circumstances leading to Tomas's demise, and yet, the thought of speaking out, of bringing light to the dark corners of the estate where his friends and enemies alike have concealed their misdeeds, fills him with dread, knowing that the revelations could ignite chaos, destroy lives, and unravel the delicate social fabric that binds Fairmont Crest together. And so Randy resolves, in a moment of quiet desperation, that he must keep his mouth shut forever, sealing his lips as tightly as the tomb that now holds Tomas, even though the weight of truth gnaws at him with every passing hour, whispering that silence can only protect him temporarily, and that the longer he stays quiet, the more complicit he becomes in the chain of events that led to this tragic turning point. Meanwhile, the other residents, unaware of Randy's knowledge, engage in their own spiraling dramas. Alliances are tested, old grudges resurface, and the seemingly innocuous gestures of neighborly concern mask intentions that are far darker and more intricate than anyone could have anticipated, creating a tense atmosphere thick with suspicion, where even the most mundane interactions are charged with the potential for revelation or deception. And as the days pass, Tomas's absence becomes a haunting presence in its own right, visible in the empty study where he once plodded quietly, in the garden he tended with meticulous care, and in the corridors echoing with his footsteps that will now never come again, each reminder sharpening the senses of those left behind, forcing them to confront not only their memories of Tomas but also their own ambitions, fears, and guilt, while Randy watches from the periphery, a silent observer burdened with knowledge that could dismantle the fragile order, knowing that every choice he makes now carries weighty consequences, and that by remaining silent, he preserves a fragile peace but at the cost of his own conscience. As he wrestles with the gnawing question of morality versus self-preservation, a dilemma made even more poignant by the realization that Tomas's death may not have been an accident, that there are forces at work within Fairmont Crest more dangerous and cunning than anyone had ever suspected, and that uncovering the truth could place him, and those he cares for, directly in the path of peril. Yet the risk of exposure, the threat of retaliation, and the unrelenting grip of fear keep him in a self-imposed silence, creating a tension that pervades the estate, infecting every conversation, glance, and gesture with unspoken truths and unrealized fears, as Randy contemplates not only the immediate aftermath of Tomas's passing but also the long-term implications of his decision to withhold information, knowing that the choice to remain silent forever is not simply a matter of protecting himself but also a statement about loyalty, morality, and the corrosive power of secrets in a place like Fairmont Crest, where every resident harbors shadows that, once exposed, could ignite conflicts, upend relationships, and change the trajectory of lives irrevocably, and thus the estate becomes a microcosm of human frailty, ambition, and moral ambiguity, with Randy as both witness and participant in a drama that seems far larger than any one person, and yet intimately connected to the fate of each individual living within its walls, as Tomas's tragic death serves as the fulcrum upon which the stories of betrayal, grief, courage, and cowardice pivot, creating a narrative tension so potent that it threatens to consume the characters from within, shaping decisions and alliances in ways that are unpredictable yet inevitably consequential. And as the shadows lengthen and the nights grow longer in Fairmont Crest, the question lingers over every silent corridor and flickering light. How long can Randy remain silent before the truth finds its own way to the surface, reshaping the landscape of power, trust, and survival? And in the midst of this tension, the characters grapple with their own identities, fears, and desires, revealing both the nobility and fragility of human nature, all while Tomas's memory becomes a haunting mirror reflecting the consequences of secrecy, the weight of choices made, and the enduring question of what it means to live, to lie, and to bear witness in a place where appearances are deceiving and the line between ally and adversary is perilously thin, culminating in a narrative that is as psychologically intricate as it is emotionally devastating, ensuring that Tomas's death, while tragic, is far from the end of the story, but rather the inciting event that propels every resident of Fairmont Crest into a reckoning with their own past, their hidden motives, and the moral compromises that define their present, as the estate itself seems to pulse with an almost sentient awareness of these unfolding dramas, responding to the energy of grief, fear, and suppressed truths in ways that are subtle yet unmistakably powerful. And within this charged atmosphere, Randy's silent vow becomes a symbol of the delicate balance between truth and survival, a balance that will be tested relentlessly in the coming days, weeks, and months, as the hidden machinations of Fairmont Crest continue to unfold, reminding every character and the audience alike that in a world rife with secrets, the cost of silence is often as great as the cost of revelation, and that Tomas's tragic death, though deeply personal, resonates far beyond the immediate circle of grief, touching every corner of the estate and planting the seeds of tension, suspense, and moral conflict that will shape the future of Fairmont Crest in ways both shocking and inevitable, ensuring that no one, not even Randy, can remain untouched by the unfolding consequences of that single, catastrophic loss. And as the estate braces for the ripple effects, the question that haunts everyone most is not only how Tomas died, but how the living will navigate the treacherous terrain of loyalty, secrecy, and justice that his absence has left behind, forcing each character to confront their own vulnerabilities, ambitions, and conscience, and to ask themselves, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, what price they are willing to pay to protect themselves, their loved ones, or the fragile peace of Fairmont Crest, and whether the decision to remain silent, as Randy has chosen, is an act of courage, cowardice, or a complex mixture of both, leaving the audience to ponder the profound moral and emotional consequences of tragedy, secrecy, and human frailty, all set against the opulent, shadow-drenched backdrop of Fairmont Crest, a setting as compelling and unpredictable as the characters who inhabit it, ensuring that Tomas's death will resonate in every whispered conversation, every furtive glance, and every calculated move long after the echoes of the immediate tragedy have faded, because in Fairmont Crest, nothing is ever truly buried, and every secret, every choice, and every act of silence carries the potential to ignite new conflicts, redefine alliances, and forever alter the landscape of power, trust, and survival within its hallowed and haunted halls, making the story of Tomas's tragic demise not just an isolated event, but the turning point of a larger, more intricate saga where Randy's silent vow serves as both shield and shackle, symbolizing the enduring tension between what is known, what is hidden, and the perilous path between truth and survival, a tension that will continue to drive the drama of Fairmont Crest forward, ensuring that the consequences of this tragic death are felt in every heartbeat, every decision, and every shadow that falls across the estate, resonating with the knowledge that, in a place like this, silence is never simple, grief is never singular, and the choices of one can alter the destinies of many, leaving an indelible mark on both the living and the memory of the one they have lost, as the story of Tomas and Randy becomes a study of human complexity, moral ambiguity, and the profound, often painful, interconnection of lives bound by secrecy, loyalty, and the inexorable weight of tragedy. Randy sat in the dim glow of the study, the once comforting hum of the estate now feeling oppressive, like it was pressing down on him with the weight of unspoken truths. The walls, lined with books and fading photographs, seemed to whisper Tomas's name in every shadow, a constant reminder that he would never walk these halls again. He ran his hand over the polished desk, once Tomas's favorite spot, recalling how Tomas had leaned over it to plan, to strategize, to protect the fragile piece of Fairmont Crest, or at least his version of it. The irony was that Tomas's meticulous planning hadn't saved him, and now the consequences of that failure lay heavy on Randy's shoulders. "Randy, are you okay?" whispered Vanessa from the doorway, her voice trembling as though the mere mention of Tomas's name drained her energy. Randy didn't answer, only shifted uncomfortably in his seat, feeling the guilt tightening like a noose. He knew if he spoke, if he revealed the full extent of what he knew about Tomas's death, the entire social ecosystem of Fairmont Crest could collapse. Friends would become enemies, alliances would crumble, secrets meticulously guarded for years would be exposed in the glare of harsh, unforgiving truth. Randy had always believed in loyalty, in protecting those he cared about, even if it meant carrying unbearable burdens alone. But now, in the suffocating silence that followed Tomas's death, he wondered if loyalty had been a mistake, or worse, a luxury none of them could afford. He imagined Tomas's face, pale in the dim moonlight, eyes wide with that mix of fear and resolve that had defined him even in his last moments. How had it come to this? Tomas, who had seemed untouchable, who had navigated the undercurrents of Fairmont Crest like a skilled mariner, had been undone in the blink of an eye. And Randy had been there. He had seen it all. The estate itself seemed to mourn. The once vibrant gardens were draped in shadows. The fountain in the courtyard gurgled with a hollow, almost sorrowful note, and the wind whispered secrets through the cracks in the windows. Every corner held a memory of Tomas, and Randy felt them pressing in on him. His mind replayed the day of the incident over and over. Tomas's hurried steps in the hall, the argument he had with someone whose identity Randy would never reveal, the sudden, sickening sound that had made him run, only to arrive too late. The details, though clear in his memory, were fragments, pieces of a puzzle that no one else could piece together. "Randy," the voice startled him. It was Bill, Tomas's closest friend, standing in the doorway, eyes red-rimmed but sharp, a storm of grief and anger barely contained. "You know something. I can see it." Randy's throat tightened. He could feel the weight of that gaze, the unspoken accusation pressing him to the floor. And yet, his mouth remained sealed. He had made a choice, a grim, irrevocable choice. Silence. Forever. I don't know what you mean," he muttered finally, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. Bill stepped closer, voice low and dangerous. "Randy, don't lie to me. Tomas trusted you. We all trusted you." The room seemed to shrink. Randy's heartbeat thundered, loud enough that he could almost hear Tomas's voice inside his head, admonishing him, urging him to act, to speak, to reveal the truth. But fear, loyalty, and self-preservation wove together in a tight knot in his chest, and he remained silent, the words trapped behind a dam of conscience and dread. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Fairmont Crest, the repercussions of Tomas's death rippled outward. Haley paced her quarters, muttering to herself as she replayed every encounter she'd had with Tomas over the last weeks. She had always seen him as a rival, someone whose influence threatened her position, and now he was gone. But that did not mean the danger had ended. The estate was like a living entity, and secrets had a way of clawing back to the surface, unbidden and relentless. Haley knew it, and so she planned, in the quiet hours of the night, weaving strategies, setting up contingencies, ensuring that any move against her would meet with calculated resistance. In another wing, Kat stood by her window, staring out at the moonlit grounds with a cup of untouched tea trembling in her hands. Tomas's death had shaken her, not just because of the loss, but because it revealed the precariousness of their lives at Fairmont Crest. Every friend, every acquaintance, seemed to harbor hidden motives, and every smile carried the potential for betrayal. She knew she could trust no one completely, not even herself in moments of weakness. Back in the study, Randy leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes as the memories pressed in from every direction. He thought of the moment Tomas had confided in him about a secret, one that could change everything if revealed. He thought of the look in Tomas's eyes, the fleeting trust, the unspoken plea that Randy keep certain things hidden. That plea now felt like a chain, binding him to a silence heavier than stone. He knew that keeping quiet was both protection and prison. Protecting others, yes, but also ensuring his own isolation, his own torment. Hours later, as the estate settled into an uneasy quiet, the night seemed almost alive. Shadows moved where no one should have been, whispers drifted through the hallways, and Randy felt eyes on him even when he was alone. He imagined Tomas's ghost, wandering the corridors, judging him for his silence. He thought about the questions that would come, the suspicions that would mount, the relentless curiosity of human nature that could not be so easily contained. Even as he wrestled with the enormity of his secret, Randy knew that silence was fragile. It could not last forever. The world outside Fairmont Crest, even in its distance and indifference, seemed poised to intrude, to demand accountability, to shine a merciless light on the shadows he was desperate to protect. And yet he would endure. He would hold the truth inside him, locked away, a secret graveyard of knowledge and regret. He would be the guardian of a story no one else could tell, the keeper of a dangerous truth that might destroy him from within long before anyone else ever learned it. The estate, for its part, seemed almost to acknowledge his vow, the walls closing in like silent witnesses, the air thick with unsaid words and unspent grief. And as the first light of dawn brushed the towers of Fairmont Crest with a cold, pale glow, Randy made a silent promise to himself and to Tomas that no one would know, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. He would endure the weight of the truth alone. The estate would see him suffer silently, as he carried Tomas's memory and the secrets of his death like a wound that would never fully heal. And so, the day began at Fairmont Crest, its beauty untouched but its soul shaken, its residents unaware of the storm lying beneath the surface. Randy moved among them, a silent shadow, carrying the burden of knowledge that would change nothing on the surface, but could destroy everything if revealed. In every interaction, every conversation, he measured his words, his gestures, his presence, all with the care of a man walking a knife's edge, knowing that one misstep could unleash chaos, and that silence, as he had decided, was both his weapon and his cage, and that Tomas's death, tragic and untimely, had forever transformed the quiet life of Fairmont Crest into a living test of loyalty, courage, and the enduring human struggle between truth and survival. Randy sat alone in the shadowed study, the moonlight cutting thin stripes across the floor like cold fingers reaching for him, while the echo of Tomas's last words haunted him, not as comfort, but as a weight pressing into his chest, reminding him that every heartbeat carried the memory of a friend now gone forever and of a secret so dangerous that speaking it would ignite a chain reaction capable of toppling the precarious world of Fairmont Crest. He remembered the hurried steps, the faint, metallic scent in the air, the sudden chaos, and the stifled cries that preceded Tomas's collapse, each detail etched into his mind with the precision of a forensic record, yet impossible to share without condemning himself or shattering lives. And so Randy resolved that silence was his only ally, even as the corridors whispered with rumors, even as eyes followed him with suspicion masked under polite smiles, and even as grief and guilt intertwined, suffocating him from within, while outside, His window. The wind rattled the shutters in a rhythm that felt almost like Tomas's heartbeat, a cruel reminder that death did not end the obligations left behind. Elsewhere, in the sprawling mansion, Kat paced restlessly, her mind a labyrinth of fear and speculation, haunted not only by Tomas's sudden absence, but by the realization that the estate, once a haven of strategic alliances and controlled chaos, had become a minefield where even the smallest misstep could trigger disaster, and she knew that the truth about Tomas's death might be hidden in plain sight, masked by deception so clever that even those closest to him could be blind to it, while her own curiosity battled with her instinct for self-preservation, leaving her torn between pursuing answers and retreating into safety. Haley, on the other hand, reveled quietly in the disorder, her mind already plotting contingencies, her eyes gleaming with the knowledge that in chaos, power could be seized and enemies unmasked. Yet, even she understood that Tomas's death had shifted the balance irreversibly, creating a vacuum that would attract scrutiny, suspicion, and perhaps vengeance, and she moved through the halls with calculated grace, every step a message, every glance a probe, testing the loyalties and fears of those around her, knowing that in Fairmont Crest, nothing was accidental and every action was laden with hidden meaning. Bill, furious and grief-stricken, confronted Randy in a tense, whispered exchange, pressing for answers, for the comfort of clarity that Randy could not provide, and in that moment, the fragile bonds of friendship, loyalty, and trust were tested to their breaking points. Each word weighed, each pause deliberate, the silence between them louder than any confession could be, while Randy, trapped in his vow of eternal secrecy, felt the strain of carrying Tomas's memory and the truth like a stone in his chest, a stone that seemed to grow heavier with every passing hour. Meanwhile, the estate itself seemed alive with tension, as if the walls absorbed the anxiety, murmurs, and suppressed fears of its inhabitants, creating a dense atmosphere where even casual remarks could trigger suspicion.